Hey everyone, Stegar here, and welcome back to Fairview. In the last few episodes of the series, we've been working on this rural area with a whole lot of farms and kind of trying to finish off the suburbs and that bit too to transition out into farmland. And in today's episode, we're going to start off by working on an industrial area here and then move on to working on the oil power station to the top of this screenshot. So I started off by placing down these warehouses from the Industries DLC. I just wanted to use them because they have a large footprint and they actually work kind of quite well in this area. And just adding these other buildings too, which I think are part of a distribution centre set. I don't remember who the creator of that is off the top of my head, sorry. But I think they're just a nice set that is multiple buildings that kind of all fit together to make one large complex. And putting some smaller shops along the main road here, and this one office building, I think it is, to kind of add to the area and change things up a bit. And also just to kind of have something different in here and some taller buildings in the city in general. It is kind of to the edge of the city, but it is kind of on a main road, so it makes sense to have a tall building here where it's the office space is needed. And here I was just putting down these curb things and putting some trees in them to kind of make the area look a bit nicer and not be all concrete. And here I was putting in a little parking lot thing. I kind of struggled a bit with getting this road that I'm about to place down in the right place, so I cut through that, and now just placing down the parking spaces so that people actually park there. And then we're going to move over to working on a Volkswagen dealership. I didn't really have any cars to place down in front of it when I built it, so I added them off camera afterwards. So you'll just see me placing down the building here and placing some other buildings along the side of it that could be like a workshop for servicing cars and what have you. And using the parking lot roads, the really wide one, to just make a whole lot of concrete outside and still have the curb and have it connect up to all the road network. And putting down these parking spaces here, because the parking lot road was too close to the main road, it caused this weird kind of bits kind of chopping off the parking spaces, so I go through soon and just add some parking decals over that. They don't function, but they just kind of fix up all the glitchiness of the parking spaces, and since they're the actual parking spaces underneath, they still work. And here I was just putting in some curbs to kind of separate things out a bit and make it a lot nicer, I guess, for people who want to park here. And just separate out different parts and add some stains and markings and stuff to make it look a bit roughed up over by the workshops over there. And more buildings from the Industries DLC, and I added in the flour mill and a big storage warehouse, I can't remember what it's from, and these oil ones, and this factory here that I just put down. And mainly the storage things just in general to buffer the city in case the traffic does weird stuff and I can't get goods in time. Hopefully they will kind of help to make sure that the city can always get goods and it just refills from there when it runs out, rather than always having to rely on donut vans to come and deliver like a few goods to some random shop or something. And here I was just making like a little yard for construction vehicles, as there is a little bit of construction going on in the city and you kind of need somewhere for them to be based from, so I thought here in this industrial area was a good place to put them. And I think this building is a 7-Eleven, I can't remember. It looks like it, and I'm just putting a little motel beside it and another hotel beside that. And that area I was planning to finish in this episode, but I ended up working on the oil power station instead, and because I kind of got stuck there with what to do, and just decided to move on. I sometimes do that, I just kind of get stuck and move on to something different rather than trying to sit there for hours trying to come up with something to do, because it can all be done in a later episode. And here I was just putting down more roads and parking for workers of these warehouses and stuff, and just trying to get that all looking nice. And more roads. I put in a roundabout here just to kind of change things up in the city. I mean, I was going for an American city, but I just really wanted to kind of put a roundabout in and change things up a little bit, and just using Move It to kind of make it a lot tighter, and putting the ploppable asphalt down to cover up all the center lines. And then I go through and disable one lane with Traffic Manager, or I might have done that off camera already, and just using these corner curb props to create a central island. And I put some vegetation in here to make it look like it's a bit more unkept. And I used the low stuff also so that visibility is still relatively good in roundabouts, because I know that where I live it's sometimes hard to see whether a car is going to turn or go straight through when there's grass in the middle of the roundabout, and it annoys me, and that is kind of what I was thinking. I know that some people do go all out and put trees and stuff in roundabouts, but I don't really feel that that's all that realistic all the time. Maybe if it's a really large roundabout, but that one was quite a small one. And I'm just adding in some fall trees here. I decided to use a lot more bare ones here, as it's kind of industrial, and they would have slightly less of a chance of surviving, I guess, if there was a little bit of pollution or something around. And I also added in a Walmart during that time as well, and just put that on the edge of the road there. And I'm trying to include some of the big American businesses and stuff, as well as a few others from various other places too, as kind of I have a selection of assets that I've picked out for the city and just using them, and was clipping those warehouses together to make one large one. What I'm doing here is using the, I think the Green Cities buildings. I think they come with the Green Cities DLC, and just kind of came across them here because I wanted something really small to fill in that space, and they just seemed to work. So I was kind of happy with that, and then actually surprised that they were vanilla assets and worked out their Green City from the naming of it all. And here is I think this is the last part of this area before we move over to the power station. And this is just a scrapyard, and I was just putting down these gravel decals to kind of roughen up the ground a bit. I think I end up filling most of the ground with painted gravel using surface painter as well, but was just using that to start off with, and putting it down all these scrap cars from Beard Monkey, I think, made these, and just kind of scattering them around the place, and some scrap. I think it's vanilla assets again, but they kind of work for what I wanted, and I kind of got lazy here and started using the prop line tool and just randomly going in directions and trying to make things look a little less organized while still being organized. And I think I used the random rotation tool as well with Move It to just make it look like it's all natural and hasn't been done in a curved line or anything like that. And just a small shop there to act as like an office or something for the place, because you would need somewhere for them to conduct transactions and stuff. And that was just a little progress shot of some work I did off camera. It kind of went by pretty quickly, but it wasn't really that much, and I didn't really think I should include it in the time lapse. The main thing what I was doing was just making a few farm fields and putting down Network River, which is beside this power station, which I've just started on, and doing the substation and stuff for it that all connects up to some power lines. There's a few different versions of substation on the workshop. I'm not even sure which one I'm using actually, so I couldn't tell you, but if you just search up like power substation on the workshop, it should come up with a few different versions of that building, which also acts as a power source, but I don't really need it and end up disabling 2 of the 3 power stations. The power station asset that I'm using anyway is just called the oil power station, and it's by Colati, if I'm pronouncing that right. I was looking at the comments before recording this part of the commentary, and apparently it's got 37,000 triangles, so you might want to be aware of that if you do want it for yourself. I honestly didn't know that when I downloaded it, but at this point in the series I don't really care that much, as it's quite detailed, and I'm just kind of trying to finish this off within about the next 10 episodes hopefully, so I can start on something new, which I have made a map for already, and I plan on sharing that or doing a video on that in a few weeks time. I think that video will just be me talking over some cinematics, because I was trying to do it on my laptop, and I mean it could record, but it wasn't processing enough stuff fast enough, so the recording came out way too laggy to use even when it was sped up, but I can just tweak things and record it at lower FPS and stuff, and it should be okay to just talk over cinematics. But yeah, that's my plan for the next couple of weeks anyway. And I also changed the lighting settings in this episode, as you might have noticed. I think it looks a lot more photorealistic now than it used to. It used to just kind of be way too green, I guess, for what I wanted anyway. I like this more, and that's kind of what I wanted. I probably spent like a good 2 or 3 hours trying to actually work out the color correction stuff, and was watching Prez's tutorial on trying to make things look realistic in your city, getting the right lighting settings and graphics mods settings and stuff. And usually for my cinematics I always crank up the dynamic resolution to like 300% as well, so I think that really helps with the sharpness of the cinematics. But yeah, and I was just putting down some parking spaces there, as you might have seen me doing, and now I'm connecting a little branch off the train line so that oil can get delivered by train and put in the storage tanks there. And just putting down some gravel as well to try and fill in that gap. And later in the episode I put down some oil cars there too, just to kind of complete that area off a bit. And also putting in this little road so that when the trucks come in they can pull into there and then reverse back into the parking area, as there wouldn't really be enough space for them to turn around otherwise, as there's parking on one side and this regular width road, and then the angled parking that I made and didn't really think about at the time, and also a security booth so that people don't just wander in here for no reason and stuff, and they actually need a permit or whatever to get in here, and just keep them safe from electrocuting themselves or something really horrible like that. And just some random tree placement, because I did that at that point in the time lapse and just included it. And I also made a forest brush in this episode to make it a lot faster to place the trees, and also use that in the next episode on the single tree setting to place trees one at a time from a selection that I'd picked out of fall trees and some pines as well, to try and keep some greenery in and just mess around with different colours and make it look all nice. And here just putting in some cars in these parking lots and some oil tankers as well that have just dropped off oil or something. I mean, you got the train as well to bring that in, but maybe this is also just for oil distribution to the rest of the city as well, I guess, because then you're making the most of the infrastructure you have and don't require way more than what you'd need otherwise, because they can just take the petrol or whatever to the petrol station, or gas to the gas station, I guess, if you're American, and just drop that off there and come back and just not have to travel so far out of the city when there's already that there. And I was putting some pipes in between all these tanks too, to try and just add a little bit more detail. It probably wasn't necessary, but I just did it. And here I make a little raised up pipe thing that goes over this area and allows for people to walk underneath it to get to the train track if they need to. And you'll see me in a minute messing around with procedural objects to try and create some supports for this. And there I was just angling it to go into the building and kind of disappear into nowhere. And I just copied one more kind of iteration of those randomly placed pipes there to get the widths right, and use steel beams to basically just make the support for that raised thing, and using procedural objects to manipulate it all around and make it how I wanted it, and then just moving it into place soon once I actually figure out whether it looks okay. And basically just I was really struggling to get it in the perfect spot. Probably went a bit overboard, but because it's round, it's kind of hard to know exactly where you're putting it, whereas if it's square, you've kind of got a bit of leeway to how accurate you actually need to be. And just copying a few over at a time and angling this down into this last tank so that there's actually some reason for this to be here. In the next episode, we're going to be working over by the railway line and doing some more suburban development over there. If you've enjoyed this episode, don't forget to leave a like, and if you're new to my channel, subscribe and ring the notification bell so that you get notified next time I upload a video. Thank you for watching, and I hope to see you in the next one.